Ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting dated October 20th. Being called to order at 6:02 p.m. Identification, please. Father, we just praise you. We thank you for our town. We thank you for the opportunity to serve. I want to pray blessings on all the homes that are represented here tonight. Give us the wisdom to act wisely, prudently, as we go forward with the business of the city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Citizens' comments. Any comments by any citizens be made? Without further ado, we'll move forward. Consent items. Minutes of regular city council meeting on September 15th, 2022. You've had an opportunity to look through the minutes and the comments made. If you have no exceptions, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes of the regular council meeting on September 15th, 2022.
Have a motion to accept the meeting minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Reports. 5-1 through 5-7. You have any comments you want to make about what you see?
I have a question on the several things, but on the police reports. Generally speaking, what is possession of drug paraphernalia cover? Like,
Jim, I'll let you address that, please.
Anything used to elicit drugs, pipes, syringes.
are there any different levels of it?
No,
That's all I have on that report. I have a question on the EUC report. Oh, first I have a question on the water district
Okay.
director's report.
Christine?
I don't think there's anyone here. No. It says they will start next week with the construction of a new water tank for Lone Star. What is that?
That's a storage tank that's been paid for by the
Northeast Texas.
Harvey,
Northeast Texas.
Northeast Texas Water Commission.
Where is it?
$1.3 million.
$1.3 million?
Yes.
Where is it? What does it do?
It's going to be located at
After
the,
by the old one across from the,
Credit union, by the credit union there?
no, it's actually before you get there, that specialties business on the highway. There's a facility out there right across the road up from it, going up next to some little county road.
Okay.
They were replacing that one.
Okay. On the economic development report, it says awarded contract for the basketball court. It said EC council approved an expenditure not to exceed 500. The city council has to approve any expenditure.
The city council's already approved the expenditure about a year and a half ago. We presented that with an open amount, and the city council voted to go ahead and approve all that. That was, I believe, in December of 20 or January of 21,
Okay.
after the public hearing.
I've not really had time to go over the financial report. It's 30 pages. Could we table just the approval of the financial reports until the next meeting?
Any comments from council?
I'll make a motion and we can go. And there, I'd make a motion that we table the financial reports 5-7 until the next meeting.
We have a motion to table the financial reports 5-7 until the next meeting. Do I hear a second? No second? Sir, we don't have a second. Did you have any other comments?
No.
Does anyone else have any comments about the report?
I'll make a motion that we accept reports 5-1 through 5-7, A and B as reported.
I have a motion, and I have a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Action item 6-1. Review discussion and possible action by the city of Lone Star for the city of Lone Star tax roll approval or tax levy resolution.
All this is paperwork that we received from the appraisal district identifying what our tax levy, the taxable values and stuff, and it's just being presented for the council to approve so that we can sign it and return it back to them. Or if they have any issues, then I'll have to address it with someone else.
Do I hear a motion for approval of the tax levy resolution?
I'd like to say first, I'm gonna be voting against it, but because I think we didn't quite meet the notice requirements to raise taxes, and so that's why I'm voting against it.
Okay. Any further comments?
I need clarification on what he means that we didn't meet the voting requirement.
Well, several things, but I think that it had to be posted on the homepage of the website,
What's that?
the tax rate proposal,
It is on the website.
on the homepage though.
It was on the homepage of the website. It's already been overwritten by other items.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the tax roll approval, tax levy
I'll second.
resolution.
I second it.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Very good. 6-2, review discussion possible action to consider to hire William H. McCoy as prosecutor for the city of Lone Star. You did the legwork on this, your comments. We contacted several people, potential prosecutors, and their workloads were full and they weren't interested in holding that position for us. Mr. McCoy, I believe is retired, is that correct? Semi-retired? Okay.
Is this the guy in Mount Pleasant downtown?
No, it's down in Dangerfield.
This is something we need to move forward for the court. Do I hear a motion that Mr. McCoy be accepted?
This is strictly for prosecutor. As of right now, we are still using Boyle and Lyle as our city attorney.
I make a motion we hire Mr. William H. McCoy as our prosecutor.
I second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Not voting.
Okay. Any opposed? (6-3) Review discussion possible actions for local business owner to discuss his feeling of being harassed. Would you identify yourself, please, and you can speak from your chair.
Okay, and I'm used to standing up when I speak, and I'll.
No, you can stand up, I just want you to stay in position.
Oh, okay. And my name is Ken Hollowell, and this is my wife Melissa. she owns Resurrection Motor Company here in town, and she allows me graciously to help work there and to do that. We've been in the city for about a year. We bought the property there from Leland and his wife and have been real thrilled with it. We own street there, all the 2.5 acres. And during the time we were in Dangerfield for a year previously, we left Dangerfield because of the fact the little spot we were in, we had sold over 250 cars in 10 months there. And by coming down here and having more space, we are now at over 500 cars that we have sold in 22 months since we've been here. So we have been very pleased. We've looked at buying other property here in town, maybe even building a 2-story home on the property we have now, because part of it is zoned for a residential if we want to. But I have noticed one thing in this town. There's way too many, I've drugged this in here because this is my sign that I now have. There's way too many of those signs up and down the street. Too many referendums, too many businesses, too many hopes, too many dreams that, for whatever reason, plant closures, personal issues, whatever it is, there's too many vacant signs. To me, I want this city to grow. I want to see these signs go away. But I feel in the past few months, and especially this past week, that I have been personally targeted and harassed over the fact of being here. I'm not for sure. I can't speak to the fact of why. I can only tell you through my eyes what I have experienced. And because of it, the other night, this is the third encounter I've had with the same officer. The other night, was working late as normal. If most people down there, they see me, sometimes I work 24 hours straight or more to move my cars out. I got thirsty, decided it's time to go down and get a Dr. Pepper. I spend all my money I can in this local town. I buy my gas at the local gas stations. I buy my things here. I buy lunch for my whole crew every day, and I do it either at Arnold's or I do it at Pizza Place, trying to invest in the community what little bit I can. And so I ran down there, grabbed a Dr. Pepper, was coming back, and I was in one of the cars I'd purchased at the auto auction, had my tags on it, and the tags from where I bought it at the auction. It was bought off of Orr and stuff, had still the stickers on the windows, everything else. I noticed the police officer coming in behind me, which is fine. I'm glad that we have patrols that are protecting our streets. I noticed then that he gets beside me when we get to the red light and pulls up next to me. He looks over at me, I look at him. At that point, I realize, or at least in my mind, he recognizes who I am and knows, where I'm going, because I'm 1 block from my place of business. He allows me to proceed. He pulls right behind me, turns his lights on. We go in. Before the encounter was over, I had received 3 tickets. I was told by him that I had to have personal insurance on every single vehicle that sat on my lot, which I have my commercial insurance, which covers every vehicle on my lot. My policy is 97 pages and did not print it all out, but I do have access to it if a person would like it. I had my paperwork all there within the office, was not allowed to get it. Then they told me that every car I had to be in my personal name. We are a licensed dealer with the state of Texas. We are licensed, we are bonded. We pay thousands of dollars a year for the license and bond. A dealership does not put it in their personal name. We are a liaison until it is sold, then it is transferred to either another dealer or it is transferred into the retail buyer's names. And also too, because the fact that it did not have a metal tag on there, then I got one for that personal car. I was kept there for over an hour and a half. I was told I was going to be taken to jail repeatedly. I was going to be arrested. All of this while I'm sitting on my place of business's property, trying to work, trying to make a living, trying to do something. Had I been caught speeding, I would have probably been a little upset, but I would have wrote a check. But instead, I came down with all my documentation showing I had insurance, showing that I was licensed and bonded, all of the things. I was told by the clerk over here that I could not talk to the judge, she could not take anything to the judge, that I had to either plead guilty or write a check for the fine. I said, I will not plead guilty because I am not guilty of these charges. So I am being prosecuted. I was told, the gentleman that y'all said not, I have requested a jury trial because of the fact, if we want to do this, let's do it right and all there. Because I am not required to have those things. I am covered. Not only am I covered, but I mean, I have insurance, that policy that I pay $1,000, then every car that is on my floor plans, which is one of the car that I was driving was, is covered through my floor plan with not liability insurance. All these are covered with full coverage insurance. When one of my trucks was taken and all, luckily we received it, got it back. The chief did a great job. Within hours, had recovered my truck. I had another truck that was taken. The guy wrecked it 20 miles away from here, hit a tree, totaled out a $15,000 truck. I had the same insurance. They paid everything but my deductible on it and all. I am covered. All I'm asking for is, I want to be in Lone Star. I like this town. I believe there's potential here. I believe that there's something good that can happen here. But if every time I turn around, as in the 3 instances that I've had, if I feel I am being unfairly targeted, I have a contract, because after the second time, I signed a contract with them to put it up for sale. Some of y'all may have saw the sign that was out there for a little while. I took it down afterwards when I thought that, after talking with the chief and all that, I thought that we were, hey, it's just a misunderstanding, things happen. We all have our opinion, with it. But then after this time, I just need to know if I need to put my sign back up, because don't mean this offensively, but I can sell cars from anywhere. Most of my customers come in from the internet. I sell from Tulsa to Dallas to Houston and everywhere in between. And I sell local here. I've sold to previous officers that are on the police force here. I've sold to officers on the Dangerfield police force down there. I think if you talk to most people in this town, overwhelmingly, car dealers never have the greatest of reputation. But I think overwhelmingly you would find the people that have bought cars in this town from me will say that I go above and beyond to try my very best to treat them with all fairness and respect and try to do something positive. But I just want to be able to do my business in this town, be a part of this community, hopefully expand to other businesses, maybe build our lifelong home here, but to feel that we can do that because I am wasting a tremendous amount of my time now. I have been over here at least 5 times in these past few days trying to resolve this matter. I was over there twice today trying to resolve this matter, and still was told they're checking with the prosecutor, they're checking with the other, it's absolutely insane. When any other time I've ever, my life, my dad was a license dealer 58 years, and the same thing. My brothers have their lots in Paris, Texas, been there for years. Anytime that we're stopped, and if they need to see something, we've never had a problem, or if they wrote a ticket, we just took the stuff down to the local jurisdiction, handed it to them, they go, oh, okay, checked it off, and we went on. But I'm looking at having to hire attorneys. I'm looking at it all for going to get a Dr. Pepper while I was working late at night and trying my best to run a good business here in town. I'm not saying there's any bad businesses here in town, and I'm just saying I'm trying my best, but this economy, it's hard. It's hard when everything lines up for you, but it's real hard if you feel that there are other people working actively to put you out of business. And that's, that's my concern. Do I need to put my sign up? I mean, if I do, and if the town doesn't want me, I'm okay with that. I'll put my sign up, I'll sell my place, I'll move down the road, I'll go somewhere else, and I'll sell my cars. But I would love to be a part of this community. But, that's, at this point, I guess it's out of my hands, it's in other people's hands, I'm gonna do, I just wanted to bring that to the council, because a lot of times I found people make decisions, people come, people go, people leave, whatever. And probably a lot of people wonder why. Or they wonder what happened, or go on, or people, rumor mills go around a lot, it's small towns. And then I just wanted to come and tell you how I feel. Now, am I saying my side or my perspective is 100% correct? I'm telling you, I know I see it through shaded eyes, but that's how I'm perceiving things at this moment. And that's why I'm feeling hurt. And we're feeling like we invested a lot of money, piece of property, our inventory, our job and everything else, that we may be forced to upend and start again. And we really don't want that. And so we just wanted to bring that, to the attention of the council here, what we're going through, the struggle we're going through.
Mr. Hollowell, are you proposing that you're going to request a trial by jury and?
If these are not resolved, I have no other I feel to get a fair hearing than to have a trial by jury. I mean, I would love for them to be resolved. I really thought I would be coming in here tonight going, yeah, there was an issue, but things worked out, hey, I've, this or that, and, I love this town, want to work with it, all this other. And hopefully, after tonight, that's where we can get to, but it hasn't, I haven't been able to get it resolved in any way. Even with turning in all documentation, giving days, giving timelines. I mean, I was given timelines that, hey, we will look at it by this date, we will have an answer for you. That date came and gone, I went back, then I was told, hey, we'll see you tomorrow, okay. Then tomorrow came, then so that we will have a meeting with the judge and the police chief and all today. That never took place, never happened. I came twice to facilitate that. So I'm here with more questions than I have answers. But if it comes down to it, if there can't be a resolution, I don't feel I have any, because I'm not going to write a check for something I am perfectly legal and pay my bills. If I was out here selling on the side of the road at my house and what they call curb stoning them, I understand that is really fuzzy, and if you're not putting them in your name, you're not having insurance, that's technically against the law. Even if you put them in your name, you can only sell, I believe it's 6, it may be 8, but I think it's 6 cars a year that you put in your own name. Anything after that, you have to have a dealer's license. We're on target this year for over 300, so I have a dealer's license. It'd be impossible for me to operate without it.
I have a couple of questions.
I'm gonna make a comment first.
Okay, sorry.
If you're proposing legal action, then
Well, I'm not proposing legal action. I was told by the court over here, I either had to write her a check or plead not guilty, and they would contact the prosecutor. That was my only 2 options I was given. I said, can you give this paperwork to the judge so that they can look over it? I was told no, because I was a car dealer, it was not allowed, and they would not be given to the judge. And I said, well, can I speak with the judge? I was told by the clerk, you are not allowed, you cannot speak to the judge under any circumstances. So I don't know, I'm not gonna sign a guilty plea. I refuse. I'm not suing the city or anything else. I have 3 traffic violations. These are traffic violations that now endanger my very livelihood, because they will not accept my insurance card, my dealer's license, my dealer's bond, registration. And like I told the chief today, I understand I'm the only car dealer in this town. I understand that. I mean, it's a learning curve sometimes when there's a different business in town. That's like this county, there's a couple, this county seems to work well with the game rooms. Never been in one to do anything else, that's perfectly fine, that's great. But they've learned what is legal, what's accessible, what's, you know, I mean, then there's a lot of counties, if a game room opened up today, they wouldn't have a clue. They wouldn't know. But I've been here a year. I would, you know, I would hope that maybe some things could be learned by now, that, you know, a dealer does not put cars in their personal name. A dealer does not carry personal insurance. We have our business insurances. We have our, you know, I mean, that's how the car business works, but I understand your average everyday layman may not understand that.
I haven't been briefed fully. I've been advised, I know that there were reports being written on it. I would suggest, unless you want to go forward with legal action, and if you do, then I cannot comment, or can anyone around this table comment to you, because it goes to legal at that point. Allow me time to get briefed on it, and we'll pick this up again, see if we can come to some kind of resolution. I don't know all the laws, that's not my forte. So let us investigate it and see what this is all about, unless you're proposing that you're going forward as of this moment with legal action, and then.
No, I'm not going forward with any legal. Like I said, I was just given two options. Out of the two options, I had to say I'm not pleading guilty. That was the only two options, because I was to appear before the 20th, and I did. Came down here, you know, to follow the rule. You know, I mean, it says on your ticket, you have to, you know, appear before a certain date. And so I came down, didn't want the time to pass, and did that. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not seeking any type of legal action. I'm just saying, if the city comes after me, I'll have to defend myself. You know, I mean, if there's no type of resolution, I will actively defend my integrity, my legal standing, my rights. But I mean, I'm not out here wanting to do anything that in any way harms this town. This is my town. This is where, you know, I have a lot of people out here that believe in me, that I've worked closely with, that I do, you know what I mean? So that's it. So as far as me seeking legal action, I'm not seeking any type of legal action. I'm just saying, if it comes down that the city so pursues it, I will actively do at that time whatever I have to defend myself.
I can understand.
I have a couple questions. You said you got 3 tickets last week, is that correct?
Yes, the date is,
The last week is all.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Did you get on the agenda before that, or?
No, it was because of that I came down to get on the agenda.
And then you said you had 3 contacts. Does that mean there were 2 other previous?
Yes, there
contacts?
were 2 previous ones.
And if you don't, do you mind sharing what was the nature of those? Or?
Okay, whenever my little Ford Ranger was stolen and everything else, the same officer responded to our call when we realized the person that was test driving it decided they weren't coming back. They just decided to test drive it and go. I was told by the officer that really it'd been 2 hours, there wasn't nothing really they could do. If they heard of something or heard, then, you know, we could get there. I said, you're not gonna go talk to anybody. The guy was walking, he came from this direction. No, not gonna do anything. Left. I got in my vehicle in less than 20 minutes. I went to the convenience store. They said, yes, a man matching that description was walking this way. He continued to walk that way, but he was here in town. I said, okay. I went down to the rabbit hole. I said, have you seen anybody that matches this description? And they said, yes. He was sitting right over there. We talked to him and we engaged with him, and he said he had walked all the way from Dangerfield and was really tired, and that he had been at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. Well, I do a tremendous amount of business with O'Reilly Auto Parts. So I get on my phone while I'm there and say, hey, was there somebody that matched this description? And fortunately for me, there not only was somebody that matched the description, but he had brought in a radio and gotten a refund with a receipt that had his name, address, and telephone number on it. So I was able within 20 minutes to call the chief, provide him with the name, Facebook page, address, everything else. And the chief took that information and was able to, that evening, was able to go to, not to his address that was on there, but he was able to figure out where the guy's father lived and found out he had stolen plates in Jefferson to put on the truck, had done everything else. But I received my truck back. It had some damage, but not a lot. I was glad to get it back. But now I am kind of interested in the fact on why, when they know the name, the person, everything else, there's never been a prosecution of this person. And as far as I know, never an arrest for him for the blatant theft of my truck. And then the stealing of the tags that was in another county and put on them. And then that, it's amazing to me. I can be prosecuted, and the prosecutor been doing for a couple of traffic tickets, but somebody can steal my truck, take it off, do it. And to my knowledge, because I've never been asked to appear in court to do anything whatsoever, to my knowledge, this person that is known to the law enforcement and knows that that's the person who took it, there's been absolutely nothing done to pursue them. And that's just to my knowledge. Or maybe things going on behind the scenes I'm not aware of, but that's been quite a few months.
And that'd be a felony, I suppose, which would be the district court.
Yeah, so I don't know on that.
It's referred to there.
But the previous time, the previous encounter was, I was coming back from the car sale in Longview, go every Friday. I buy average of 10 to 20 cars a Friday up there. Everybody comes on my lot Friday afternoon because they know there's going to be a whole lot of different cars there. I was driving one in. It had the paper tags, had everything like you have at the car auction, had all of our numbers. I was pulled over to the side of the road by the officer, the current officer, same officer. At that point in time, I was questioned, and I said, well, I said, if you need to, call the chief. He knows who I am. At that time, I had sold to a previous officer that was there that was still on the force. I said, or you can call him. I'm transporting the cars in, I'm getting everything. And it was literally right across from my dealership where the guardrail is, right past the donut shop there. So I could see my dealership from there. I was kept on the side of the road for over 45 minutes while my VIN numbers were run, while everything was done, all that. And finally, after I called the chief, and I don't know if he contacted him or had somebody else, whatever. But anyway, after they were able to establish who I was, and I was doing there, he said, okay, let you go. And I mentioned this because of the fact that was referenced during this stop the other night. He said, I've already let you go once for this, I'm not letting you go again. Well, I was legal then, and I'm legal now, but evidently there was no learning experience between the two to understand how the car business works, and we're looking at over 6 months of time period there. And so that's why I feel, and then whenever he pulled up beside me, looked over, had not turned on his lights, and I told this to the chief today, I said, I really wouldn't be thinking about it had he pulled out, saw the tag, wondered, hey, who's this coming through town doing that, and turned on the lights and pulled me over. But he followed me, then pulled up beside me, made eye contact, identified, knew it was me, then fell in behind me, turned on his lights, and begin the process. And I will say, I have a video of it, I know they've got a video of it and all too. I was not happy about the situation. I didn't cuss anybody, which was good for me, because sometimes I have a tendency to do that. And all that, I didn't. But I was very upset the fact that I could not even get my documentation from my office, which was less than 10 feet from my car. I was being told repeatedly I was going to be taken to jail. And all this, all over the fact of not understanding the laws that apply to a car dealer.
Let us look further into this,
Okay?
and if you choose to go forward with a different type of action, that's your right.
Right. But I mean, I'm telling this council, I don't want to take any type of action.
I understand.
The only thing I will do is if the city, I will stand for my rights. But I would rather go forward and work on buying and selling cars. Because like tonight, I will leave here, we'll go and eat at Arnold's again. You know, I eat way too much there, you know, probably clogged every artery I got to love them, but that's still that. But I will go back. I will be working because they're having over 1,000 cars at the car sale in the morning, and I've gotten 4 of mine up there. I still got another one, and I have a customer that bought the car as is, no warranty, 3 months ago, but it started getting hot on her granddaughter. I've got all the parts needed. I'm fixing her car tonight. So if it takes me all night, I will be there. That's what I want to do. I want to focus on taking care of my customers and doing that. And I don't want to. I have this sign bill, but I don't want to put it out. I want to be a part of Lone Star.
If anybody is concerned about the time frame, anyone has the right to assert the Texas Speed Trials Act and have it trialed in 30 days. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's,
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want the other. I just want to sell cars. That's all I want. And like I said, I will say, and I want to say publicly, the chief has been very nice to me and all of my employees and very accommodating. He's listened to me go on without telling me to shut up, which a lot of people will do that. So, I mean, I have no fee, and it's very possible that my interpretation of the motives is wrong. I'm just telling you how I feel. I may not have been targeted, but I feel I was. And that's what only thing I can base it on is what I feel. And so, but I have no hard feelings toward anybody because I make daily mistakes. I make a lot.
I'm gonna suggest that in lieu of your comments, allow me to be briefed on it by my officers.
Right.
And I'll get back with you,
Okay.
and let's see where these kind of actions take us.
Okay.
Appreciate your time here, your comments.
Well, I appreciate y'all listening and letting me carry my sign around, so I will carry my sign, put it back in the back of the car for now, because I know that Michelle would get onto me if I lose her sign. I've already bought 3 houses from her, and all since being in this area, and she would not look favorably if I lose her sign and the contract on her building. Anyway, thank you.
If you're in agreement that we go forward in the manner that I.
Oh, I am in perfect agreement with that. Yes, I will not do anything
We'll go
beyond
forward
until
with that
I hear.
protocol, and I'm gonna have to move us on to the different action items.
Right, okay,
No action required on this tonight. Thank you for your time.
okay, well, thank you very much.
Review discussion possible actions on city park project number 2022-001 drainage and improvement update. There won't be a vote required on this. We just kind of brief us on the progress.
We have, it's about 95% complete, the drainage improvement project. They should finish up either tomorrow afternoon or Monday. I'm certainly glad that the company that bid on it was the best, the cheapest bid, the best for the buck, so to speak, because not only has he saved us about $40-something thousand, but he's gone over and above with some of the issues we found down there. I will tell you, and I'll give you a complete report next month once I get everything finished, but as you're well aware of, you've been down there, I had you down there a couple of times. It was a mess. There was no doubt in my mind why we were having the issues we were having once we started the project. But what do you expect when you have 1950, 60 work that's been sitting there for 70 years and you try to tell you to do what's right? So back in the day, everything was acceptable. So anyway, you're welcome to go down and look at it. Like I say, most of the equipment is gone already. They're doing some grading on some of the dirt, try to get it like they want it. As I talked to him today, he was in the process of finalizing some of the ditch lines and also in the process of starting to put down fertilizer and grass seed. So they're trying to get it to grow that way because grass is the best filter that there is. So at this point in time, that's where we stand. Like I said, we should be through with it tomorrow at the latest Monday. And then I've got pictures throughout all the steps. I'll bring and let everybody have a copy of those when we meet next month, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to address on your list?
Now we'll find out
No. Thank you. 6-5, your discussion and possible action on the policy of displaying the thin blue line flag of the courtroom at municipal court proceedings. Sorry, I believe you brought this to us.
So yeah, just very briefly, the thin blue line flag says back the blue essentially, and in a courtroom, I think it could represent bias. I think it could create a headache for the municipal court. And so I'm going to make a motion that it's city policy that we do not display the thin blue line flags during any municipal court proceeding where the judge is present. And if that doesn't pass, then I'll propose a motion that it will be strictly the prerogative and authority of the judge, and that she can continue to display the thin blue line flag as she sees fit. So I make a motion that it be city policy that the thin blue line flags are not displayed during municipal court proceedings. Or I would entertain any more discussion, obviously.
Do you want to have any other comments? It's my understanding, sir, that the thin blue line represents all first responders, EMT, firemen.
Okay, well, so if it represents police officers, if you decide to challenge a speeding ticket or something, it's the police officer who's, giving testimony and saying, you did this, and you're saying, no, I didn't. And the judge is supposed to be impartially looking at both. And if she's, having a flag that says, I back the blue, and so if I've seen the flag with red for firefighters and stuff like that, but it does include police, obviously, so.
Isn't it the judge decision?
I suppose that could be the city policy. I mean, we could say, no, it's
I'm
not.
not saying you do this, the judge for me, isn't it? You is the judge's decision. Their court.
Yeah, and but they are under the city council, like we elect to have a
I
city court.
understand.
So what is your motion, Cody?
So I will now make a motion that, oh, did I already do that? No, I already did that.
Please repeat it.
I make a motion that the thin blue line flags will not be displayed at proceedings of the municipal court.
Do I hear a second there? And you're.
Okay, so the second motion is that the thin blue line flag will continue to be displayed, or as the city judge sees fit. It'll be the city policy that is up to the city judge what flags are displayed, and she can continue to display the thin blue line flags if she wants. That was long for a motion, I suppose.
And I guess you're approaching this on the ground of taste.
I think it could create a headache for the city court. There's been other cities where it created a headache for the city court.
Where were those cities?
San Antonio, there was a similar situation.
This is in San Antonio.
Your opinions, council?
I don't think we've heard any complaint from our judge. Have you heard a complaint from our judge?
She did. I asked her today, and she said she didn't even know what was back there.
Just I first realized.
Right here.
Go ahead.
When I first realized it, I didn't know it was over there either. But, at the judge's discretion. Have anyone complained? You know of any complaints?
Do I know of any complaints? No.
I mean, okay, if there's some complaints and they perceive it as bias, and I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And there would be complaints and stuff.
I spoke to the county judge regarding this issue and wanted to know how familiar he was with it. And he said, I've seen it on the media out there that some people took exception to it. And his comment to me was that Texas is a republic. The same things that happen in other states, and you mentioned San Antonio, does not apply to Texas. And he said it's the option of the council as to whether or not the flag stays. It's not per se the judge.
I mean, I personally don't have any problem with it unless someone complains.
But I think there's some judicial canons that it could run afoul of. And as long as she's aware of it, and the city council is fine with her having that discretion, authority, prerogative, whatever.
It's not her discretion authority, it's the council.
And it is her courtroom, so.
So,
It's a city, but it's still a city municipality.
so if it's the council's call, I make a call that flag stays.
Your motion.
Well, I make a motion.
Go ahead, second.
You have another motion first.
Well, the motion was that it would be the discretion of the judge, that it would be up to her, basically.
But it's not up to the
But
judge.
it's not up to the judge.
Well, if we say it is, then it would be up to her. So if it is ultimately our authority, yes, for sure. But if we say it's the judge's authority, then it's her prerogative. I'm not saying we're delegating the authority, but we can leave it to her. Which is what my motion was. So-
Mayor, could I ask a question? Mayor?
Yes.
So the only problem you're seeing is just with, while we're in court.
Uh-huh.
I don't see a problem with just moving them
I'm gonna be
during
the
court.
devil's advocate for a moment.
We,
At what point, anyone can call you out on anything?
I think that was Mr. Womack's point, Your Honor, is that somebody can look at it and say, the court's being biased with the police because they're displaying the thin blue line. Most people don't understand what that flag actually means.
What does the flag mean, sir?
Well, according to Wikipedia, if you look at the thin blue flag, the thin line flag, blue flag, it represents good and evil, and then the thin blue line is the police that is in the middle of battling the good and evil. So people don't understand that. They think, it all came out when Mr. George Floyd's incident. Believe me, Assistant Chief Frazier looked it up. This flag's been around since the early 1950s. We, as a PD, have no problem moving it while the court's in session. So, we don't want any conflict. We want to win all our court cases, and we don't want anything thrown
I
out.
appreciate your cooperative spirit, but it's still gonna be up to council with this stage.
I have a request for a comment.
Mind if I give a citizen's viewpoint?
Sure.
I never speed, so I never get speeding tickets. But I feel that if I get a speeding ticket and I go into court and it's just my word against an officer, I feel that most judges will assume that you just don't want the ticket and don't want to pay for it and that you really did it and that the cop would never lie. That's my feelings on how our judicial system works. And I can understand the perception that Be Back Blue would say, we're gonna assume that the officer is right unless you can prove you're right. And how would you ever prove a negative?
Body cameras. We live in an age where it's body camera. As this man was sitting here telling his story to the council a while ago, it's all on body camera. Every bit of what he said could have been falsified due to the fact that Officer Andrade had his body camera on. It will never be your word against our word because we have body cameras, which we can, all that's evidence when it comes to trial. I'm not arguing with you, Mr. Reader. I'm just proving a point that we live in an age now where you have body cameras and cell phones. So,
And I have no example of you or your crew doing anything wrong. So I'm not directing this comment at
no,
you.
I understand that.
Too many times the footage is lost. If I were right, I would assume the footage would be lost. And unless you have your own footage, you're at the mercy, and this is not me being against policing.
No, I understand that. But we can what if all day.
Sure, absolutely.
Man, if I had $10 million, I wouldn't be here.
I think in the spirit of executive, legislative, and judicial, that we should leave it to the city judge.
It's still defaults back to the council, if I understand your comment.
So how do we get rid of his motion?
How do we get rid of what?
He's made the motion for it to go to the city.
He would have to have a second to do it.
Yeah.
Or it could die for lack of a second.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
So, I need to clarify something. We had no second on the fact of the line, flag not being displayed, proceeding during this municipal court. There's no second on that. He made a motion that it'd be up to the judge whether it's it's gonna be displayed or not. I had no second on that. So we've got two proposals and no seconds. So,
Before we make another proposal, it's evident to me that people don't know the history. Actually, the thin blue line originates from the early 19th century. Comes from the British troops, and they had a thin red line. Back in the early 1900s, actually the thin blue line was adopted when the United States Army had blue uniforms, marched into battle and all lined up. And that in history in itself is how the thin blue line got started, or the blue line. It was adopted in 1950s, it was adopted by law enforcement professionals to represent the courage and sacrifice while protecting the American people. The thin blue line pays homage to our law enforcement. It does demonstrate support for law officers and first responders. And I think that since there's no legal ramifications for displaying it, I don't see a problem with it at all. We can assume all day, and you know what assuming does. So why assume? I mean, you wouldn't assume if you were in here in a court of law, or you could, but that would be your mistake. So my opinion is we leave it in here and shouldn't even brought up in the first place, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
So you're making a motion that we left in here?
Yes, sir.
And I'm
Make a motion, we
seconding.
leave it in.
Seconding?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Did everybody vote? I'm writing
I'm
this.
trying to find it. Are you gonna vote?
Yeah, I vote, yeah, we can leave it in there.
Oh, okay. Six review discussion possible action on the fencing of the city-owned right-of-ways by private property owners and authorize the mayor to draft a letter to the property owners at 529 North Main Street, the Automan, instructing them to remove their property and fences from the city-owned right-of-ways.
So,
So you can explain.
I put this on the agenda. The reason I included the deed is because on this deed, the property lines are defined by the plats. And so the plat for that section of property, the streets, the city property is 50 feet wide. Actually 50.44 feet wide right there. The city street from the edge of the curb to the edge of the curb, as you can see in that picture, is 27 feet. Where it's fenced off is 12 feet by 180 feet of city property. So, you know, personally, I don't like the look of the hurricane fencing there, but that's the prerogative of whoever owns the property. The only thing this is addressing is fencing off from the public's property. And so, and some of the things that are being done on this property, people would be written a ticket for doing on their own property, say in Edgemont. Tires, junk cars, etc. And so as far as I'm concerned, he can do whatever he wants to on his own property though. But you can't fence off 180 feet by 12 feet of the public property where they would be walking and have to walk in the street. And I've heard some talk, well, they can walk on the other side, but that's for sale. And you know, a property owner on one side of the street cannot encumber the property on the other side and say, well, you can't fence yours off. And so I'm not talking about moving a fence 6 inches or something like that. And you look on the plat, it was 125 feet, and that, you know, if you go to the appraisal district, you can look at an aerial view and draw, and that's why I showed 125 feet. The property line is about halfway between where the corner of the building is, and the property is for sale also. So, I mean, this is going to be going forth with whoever purchases it. Like I said, where you see where that truck is and the barrels and the totes and the tires, that's all city property and not by just a little bit. And I have a draft letter if it goes that far to save the trouble with some suggested language on how to address it. But I would have the mayor send the property owner, and it could be a different property owner, next week, saying, you know, you have to move your fence to the property line.
And where did you say the property line was from the street?
It's about 12 feet from the back edge of the curb.
And if I remember correctly, before that fence was put up, he came, at that time it was Ricky Duke. He came to the city council and got approval for that fence.
How many years has that fence been up?
I don't know.
Right.
Even if that's,
Good.
It's
I
been,
think it's been up there about 4 or 5 years.
yeah, but,
How long it was?
yeah, but do you, they were breaking into his place, yeah.
I mean, they talk about like the riffraff walking across their property, but if the riffraff put that stuff on their own property that they owned, they would get a ticket.
Yeah, but like I said, it was approved by council for him to put that fence up.
Were they aware of the property lines? And if
Yes, they
approved
were.
it-
He brought everything into the council. And
So you're telling me that you can come ask the city council, I want to fence off and say, I will prosecute anybody who trespasses on this land, people who own the land, the public owns that land.
it
And
was a
we're not
commercial
talking about 6
property.
inches. Yeah, his is a commercial property, that's a zoning issue. But the ownership of the land, we're not talking about an easement. The public doesn't have an easement across his property, they own that property. The city owns 50 feet across. He does not pay taxes on 50 feet across. The city loses taxes or is responsible for the taxes that would have been paid on that stretch of land.
I went to our legal counsel on this, asked the question, described the scenario. And he said the short answer is there cannot be a fence on city-owned property without the city's permission. So it can be granted through approval of council.
I believe the city could fence its own property, certainly, you know, with its own approval, but we can't give it to someone. And he also doesn't require an adverse possession. You can't adverse against a government.
I'm just telling you what he told me.
Well,
And the city gave him permission.
but it was not lawful to do that.
The lawyer said we could.
That's what our legal counsel told us that could be done.
So Cody, you're saying, you're going down the path though that the city is giving him this property because he's got it fenced in within his
Even if they're not giving him deed to the property, they're giving him ownership of the property effectively because he is saying he will prosecute someone for being on their own property, the public being on the public's property.
So, if somebody trespasses, they shouldn't be allowed to be trespassed because they don't belong to those places.
Would I go to jail if I jumped the fence?
That's a good question. If someone jumped
My
the fence
property.
and stood there on the other side of the fence and they call up and say, hey, someone's trespassing, what are the police going to do? I assume, you know, like the police are not expected to show up with a deed, you know? They're not expected to have a court hearing. They would probably assume that that was his property.
Yeah.
And then that person, that would be a reasonable assumption, and then that person, I guess I'll have to do it, and then that person would,
Be issued a criminal trespass. From that property.
and then they would defeat it if they were on public property in that sense.
You can't trespass public property.
A right of way of a street, you couldn't. You could probably criminal trespass some public property, I don't know. But a right of way of a street, you
You have to prove
couldn't.
a crime. They can't just say, I don't want you here. You have to prove an actual crime.
But the right of way of the street is there for a reason, and it's for us to walk on. Or to expand the street if it ever felt like it.
Understand
Mayor, I think that'd be a question for Kyle here. Mr. Womack brings up a good point. If somebody jumps that fence and it's on the actual city property, he's right, we're not gonna bring a deed to it. We're not assuming that, cause it's in a closed shop, that the property belongs to him, we'd issue the guy a criminal trespass. That'd be a question for Kyle here.
Well, Kyle, comment.
All right, so, and he's got a good point. And one thing that I don't know, because I'm on the agenda for the next couple of hours, but I do need to research, what does the planning and zoning ordinance say? What did the planning and zoning ordinance say when the city council approved it? Was the proper variance requested, or did he just come and put it on the council agenda? If he just put it on the council agenda and the planning and zoning or the city order says you've got to request a variance, then what the council did was wrong. There is ways to go back and research. I'm not trying to, it's not, tonight ain't the night to do it. Is it something that if we go forward with what's on the next couple items on the agenda, I'm more willing to take the time to go back and see if it was done and then talk to the legal counsel about what we can do to get it fixed. There are some ways to look at it, but there are some things that we need to go back and see what the previous council did and what the ordinances say at that time. If you put it as a variance, yes, the council can approve a variance and fence it. That's part of the state law. If they didn't, if they just come in here and put it on the agenda and the ordinance says you can't do it, then the council was wrong at the time. And we can go back then and say, okay, get with the attorney and let's move forward on getting it rectified. There are some ways that it can be done, but it's going to be a lengthy process, and we're going to have to we've got to go back and figure out when it was approved and when it was built, and that's our first step. Because the council can do it, but they've got to do it right. And that's what we need to prove, one way or the other, whether the council was right at the time or wrong at the time.
Okay.
Was the current owner on the council at the time? Do we know that?
No.
No?
No, Ricky was never on the council.
No, I mean,
Ricky do own that property himself.
right, but he would have been his son. I mean, his father.
Yeah,
It
but-
was 4 years ago, Ricky didn't, Trent didn't own it at the time.
No,
Right. But was he on the council when his father asked?
no.
Okay.
You're saying 4 or 5
And
years.
he would have to abstain anyway if he had been on the council.
The fence, yeah,
But he couldn't vote on something for his dad.
no. Ricky owned the property.
But, fencing a property is a big step from fencing it and allowing it for one person's private use without charge.
Yeah, I understand.
So the only other option he could do is possibly move the fence inwardly so many feet for the right of way, is what you're basically getting to.
Yes. and it's-
Because he can fence his own property.
Yes.
You're saying the right of way is what's being imposed with this fencing.
Yes, it's the right of way to the street. It is not an easement for the public to use his property. It is the right of way to the street. And so,
I'll make a motion, we table this pending further investigation.
I'll second it.
And we're not gonna solve it tonight.
No, I would agree. We need to find out the details.
A lot of research
Find out
needs to be
when it
done.
when it was approved, what the protocol was used, and those are things that we don't know.
Got a motion,
So I got a
second, need
motion
a
and a
vote?
second to table it for now. You'll hear all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
nay.
Okay, okay.
So we're gonna table 6-6 and bring it forth to the next meeting.
Six seven, review discussion, possible action by the council to approve the amended financial audit for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020, as presented by the audit firm as Arnold Walker Arnold.
I just want to kind of speak on this because
Yes, please.
I'm responsible for the fact that this came again. I printed a whole bunch of them, so actually there's not two people less. Don't have one. Let's see.
Before you get started, Cody, can I ask a question? Where did you get these numbers from? Because nothing that I have been able to drill down into match these numbers.
Which one?
Your appraisal values of the property.
I got them from the appraisal district. You got to find like the old appraisal values. I sent Summer an email, and she gave me all the appraisal values back to 2010.
Okay.
Do you want to make copies of this later? I can leave it with you. You can make copies if you want.
If we need to, I knew that I looked up, because the reason why I asked that question is because I have found through some other research on some properties, because the city doesn't pay taxes, excuse me, because they don't pay taxes, some of their alignments and appraisals are maybe confused with some of the other ones, because there was one time when I looked at some property values on a particular piece of property that was more acreage than another, and it was a much less dollar value than one that was of smaller acreage, which made no sense, and that's what got me to calling them about it. And when I called them about it, they told me, said, well, since the city doesn't pay any taxes on it, when we put it in the computer, it may be wrong or whatever, so that's why I was asking where you got the numbers from.
I don't think they put a lot of priority into working on those numbers because in a way it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the sense that it matters to most people because they're paying more or less taxes. It does matter to the city because it's more assets on the books. And so like if you're borrowing money, you can borrow it cheaper. Like when Mr. Reeder was on the council, he kept talking about that USDA loan, that we're gonna pay $300,000 a year on until 2066, comparing it to borrowing it from a local bank. And that's where it would really matter what your assets were. And so at first I had only looked at the Lone Star Elementary property because when Lone Star Charter Schools had first wanted it was at $1.1 million, and then it was about $300,000, and that was bad. And usually you want your appraisal lower. right? But if you're not paying taxes on it, you want it higher because it's more assets. And so I first, I guess, sent an email. I thought that they would be here tonight, actually. I sent an email because typically there's contact information listed in the audit. I sent an email to Mr. Walker, and I said, here's what I'm looking at. Well, first when his son came here, I said, where did you get the values for the fixed assets, the lands, and the buildings? And he said, from the appraisal district. And then I asked him, what kind of things would you catch? And he said, we'd catch $100, but not $1. And this chart right here that I've passed out, the total, the appraised value is from the appraisal district. That's what it was on the rolls of the appraisal district. The right column is who owned it in those years. The left, the total capital assets and total assets, that comes from the audits going back to 2012. Okay? So when the city acquired it, it was at $1.2 million. And that's not reflected in the city's assets, total assets or capital assets. The reason I included total assets was because, if something was categorized wrong, so you got total assets. So it went from 0 to $1.2 million on the books, and it did not show up anywhere. Our total assets went down. And then it went to 0 when it went to Lone Star Charter Schools. And that didn't seem to affect the audited statements at all either. And so I thought maybe I was missing it. I sent an email to Mr. Walker, and I said, I'm looking at this, what's the deal with this? And he said, call me. And I called him, and he said he just missed it. It was just a mistake, couldn't believe it. And he had gone back with the appraisal district, back and forth, and you said that they had said it was something to do with the Lone Star Charter Schools, and that's why I wanted to include this chart, because it goes back to before.
What he had told me was,
Which one?
Mr. Arnold is the one that I've dealt with.
The father?
Mr. Arnold, yeah, between talking to him and his son. He had made a comment whenever I got the email. He sent me an email stating that he would be providing a revision because of something that you brought to his attention. So when he brought the packet in, he commented to me about the fact that when you had the school and stuff, it was taken off of the assets, if I understood him correctly, because this was outside my knowledge on what was done or whatever. It was taken off of the city's assets because it was within your possession or however the deal worked on that. And apparently when whatever happened to where the city regained it again, it was never put back on to the city's assets. And he said the way he found it was going back through some of the council minutes, and that's how he found it. He said there was nothing communicated to us showing that it was to come back onto the city as an asset. He said I found it by going back into council minutes and stating something about the city retaining the property, or something on those lines.
You had mentioned that, I think, the last meeting on before, and if you look at this chart, that doesn't hold water, because.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what was shared with me.
I was expecting to have a discussion with them tonight. How much was the audit? What was the cost of the audit?
You asked that question in the last meeting. I think it was 14.
And have they sent a bill for the revised audit?
No, and they won't.
Yeah, because I think we should look at, there's a 2-year statute of limitations on doing something about the last, at least 2 years. I'm not sure how the statute of limitations works. But another thing is on the revised audit, they revised the numbers for, they've been doing audits for at least 10 years, same firm. On page 8 through 10, they show, they changed the numbers. I went through and highlighted all the numbers that had changed. And
I did too.
They changed all.
Actually, through 15, there's some minor changes.
Yeah. But through page 10, they show 2020, or through 11, they showed the year 2020. They didn't change those numbers, and they should have. And like I said, this problem
You said
exists.
on page 10?
On 8 through 10, it shows 2021 and 2020.
Okay, my page 10 doesn't show, what number are you talking about?
Table A1,
That would be 8 on your.
Are you looking at the new book?
yes. But it's the same on both books. I mean, the page
Yeah.
number's the same.
No, actually, when you get on further in, there's a number of, because I looked at the other books and compared them.
Okay, page 8 though.
Okay?
It shows 2021, and then to the right of that, 2020. They should have changed 2020 also. They should have updated that, because that asset existed in 2020 as well. And the explanation that it had anything to do with Lone Star Charter Schools transfer is wrong, because you see this from when the city first acquired it, for the 4 years before that happened. That it never showed up in the city's assets.
So you're saying we still have an audit report that deserves some more attention?
Actually,
Still have
yes,
accuracy.
yes, I am saying that, but not even, I'm just saying that that explanation that it had anything to do with that transfer back has nothing to do with this. The second chart on the back page, I just went to the Appraisal District website, searched real estate for City of Lone Star, copied and pasted the 4 pages, summed it up, and it's almost $2.1 million. And yet, in this revised, what would it be, page 12, probably? It shows total capital assets at 1.7, and the appraisal district shows $2.1 million. And that's why I asked him where he got those numbers, and he said from the appraisal district. And also,
But if you look on page 12, where it says total assets, it's got 2.118.
but that has pension assets, those don't show up on the appraisal district. That's just
Okay.
coincidence. But it's a good point that it's the same number, but it's just coincidence, because that includes pension assets, restricted assets, cash, accounts receivable, all that stuff. And I think somewhere in the notes to the audited financial statement, it said that they only count as a capital asset things that are over $5,000. And if you wipe that out of this list, it still comes out to over $2 million. So there weren't that many accounts there that were under $5,000 to affect it that much. In 2012, they said in the notes, if you look at the audit book from 2012, it said that there was a problem. There was no subsidiary record on fixed assets. And they reported it in 2011 as well. And I came in this morning, I remembered it, but I didn't have time to verify it. I believe in 2013 it said the problem had been corrected. They now had a subsidiary ledger of fixed assets. I think this audit is still unacceptable.
I think your issues, your exceptions need to be addressed. I'm going to suggest, go back and look at it again. List your exceptions, give that to Tina. Let's funnel it through her. She can send it back to them, and let's see what they say. This report does need to be accurate, absolutely.
I mean, I worked on it all day, but just today. And I had started looking at those from 10 years ago before the audit. I noticed them up here. One of the questions I was going to ask him, but he's not here, was he said he was not going to audit Lone Star anymore because they were downsizing or something. But they do the school district and the county, which we're part of. And I wonder if they're going to continue to do that, and why.
His health is not good,
Yeah.
is the reason why they're downsizing. Matter of fact, during the audit, he was not here some, his sons were here.
And it was his son who came here.
His son came that night of the audit, as he did last year, to wrap it up, because Mr. Arnold doesn't normally come on the nighttime as far as in council meetings.
But you think it was $14,000?
It's something like that, yeah, because
Yeah.
water and sewer has to split it with the general fund because of all revenues being audited.
Would you mind compiling your exceptions to it? Let's send it to him and let's get this corrected. If we paid the bank, then we need a report that's accurate.
And I would also, I'll try to talk to TML with their free legal contact to see if there's any action that could be taken should there be a problem.
So what we need to do is table this for now.
So what type of action are you thinking of trying to take on this, as far as on getting just the audit corrected from the last couple of years? Because if there's a statute of 2 years, that's all you can get done is 2 years.
Well, a refund of 1 year would be pretty nice. If you've had, 10 years of bad audits, I'm saying it's something that should be looked at.
You know, I understand where you're coming from, but that's not realistic.
Well, I want to talk to TML legal at least about that possibility. I know that if you, like a 2-year statute of limitations, let's say you hire a CPA to do your taxes, you ended up with a penalty, that's where that statute of limitations could come in. Not having things listed as an asset can have significant costs.
But I'm gonna say this based upon what he shared, and you can disagree. If we as a secretary or someone from the council or whatever did not have it added back on to the assets, you can't blame them for that, because like I said, he said that they went back through the minutes and how they found it. Now, I don't know that that's true or not true. But if we fail to communicate that asset being placed back on our list as far as owning the property, then that's on the city, not the auditor,
The city council hires the city secretary and the auditor.
right?
And so we hire the city secretaries, and this has been since 2012, and then we hire the auditor to check up on it, to provide assurances that there are no material misstatements. And that's a material misstatement, for one thing. I'm not saying we're gonna sue him, but I'm saying it's something that should be looked at in the realm of possibilities. And he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, we just need a report that's accurate and assesses it properly.
Sure.
So y'all on the table this?
I make a motion, we table the approval of the 2021 audit. Is that what this is called?
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Hear a second? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Oh, aye. Did you vote?
Yeah,
Aye.
you made the motion, buddy.
Okay, 6-8. Review discussion of possible action to consider to hire Cal Harrison as a part-time code enforcement officer for the city of Loma Linda. We are now going into executive session. 7:26. The closed session was adjourned at 7:55 p.m. and no official action or vote was conducted during the closed session.
Which one is your screen?
You gentlemen have your cameras set back up again?
Yes.
Okay.
I know you got two.
Now, we had a very favorable conversation with you, but it's gonna be a requirement of protocol that we list this out to allow others to apply for the job. We have to put that out for a 2-week notice. Does that that an exceptional issue with you? This is the protocol that we have to follow to make sure that we're within the law.
That's up to y'all.
I think that's something that we're going to do, and we'll get back with you. Any other comments?
And
Do I hear your motions?
there's,
I move that we adjourn.
Wait, go ahead.
there's a possibility of a special meeting and.
Yes, there's a possibility of a
If
special
the time
meeting.
frame, if the time frame
True,
works,
true, true.
before the next regular meeting,
Yeah.
Because I like the idea, let's do that, get it out of the way.
if it's
And,
possible.
Yeah, if it's possible.
Just let me know if you want me back.
And you need to understand something. The application you turned in is a matter of public record, so anybody can get access to any information that's on it. So you need to know that before we go forward. So, just to let you know that, okay? If you have an issue with that, you need to talk to Tina and take the information off there or whatever you don't want to be made public.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second, all in favor, say aye.